How's it going, my bakers? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll be making cold fermented ciabattas. Let's go to the kitchen and check them out. Now, if you search my channel, you'll find plenty of recipes for ciabattas. That's why I love bread making so much. You could make any bread in many different ways. I've been really into cold fermentation lately, so I thought why not make ciabatta using this method? And I guess it was a good thing I did because these turned out amazing. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the principles of cold bulk fermentation, check out my video on the Principles of Baking playlist. Saying that, you don't need that video to be able to follow this recipe and make this delicious bread for yourself. So let's get right to it and see what exactly we need to make this. We got some strong white bread flour, water, yeast, salt, a little bit of whole wheat flour, and that's it. While the ingredients are basic, it is the method that makes the bread. We will need a few pieces of equipment though. Of course, starting off with a bowl, scales, dough scraper and a temperature probe. The final proof of a ciabatta is normally spent between the folds of a linen cloth, also known as a couche in French. Now at home, you just use a clean towel. All we're going to do is create some creases and rest the ciabattas between them. And the exact same method is used when making baguettes. And of course I do have a video on those too. Next up, we'll need a piece of non-stick paper. This will just make it easier to slide the ciabattas in the oven. To move the ciabattas from the towel to the paper, I'm going to use this thick piece of paper. You could also use a piece of cardboard. This helps move the loaves without distorting them. And again, this piece of equipment is also used in making baguettes. One really important piece of equipment is a solid base to bake on. A pizza steel, a pizza stone, cast iron skillet or a thick tray. Use what you have. We also need something to slide the ciabattas in the oven with. A pizza paddle works great. If you don't have one, use a thin cookie sheet or just a flat tray. Finally, steam is very important. It'll make the loaves rise better and will ensure that the crust is nice and crispy. So you want a thick pan or a thick tray preheated in the oven, in which you will pour some boiling water to create steam. If you don't have a cast iron skillet, you can use a tray. If you have a spray bottle, you can fill it with water and use that. Again, the same principles apply when making baguettes. And I guess you could say that the ciabatta is just a really basic version of a baguette. As always, I'm going to be starting off with cold water, because as the dough is kneaded, it will warm up. We don't want our dough to be too warm, otherwise it's going to over ferment in the fridge. Now with all that out of the way, let's start making it. Grab a large bowl, add the water, the yeast and the salt. Then give it all a good mix. You want to dissolve the salt and hydrate the yeast. Once everything's mixed up well, add the whole wheat flour and the white flour. Then grab your scraper and mix it to the dough. This dough has a relatively high hydration of 80%. So instead of kneading it right away, we will leave it to sit and go through a process called autolyzation. This passive step will help develop gluten without us even touching the dough. All you need to do is mix the ingredients and let them sit for half an hour. Look at the dough now. If I try to pick it up and stretch it, it tears very easily. This will drastically change in just a few moments. If you want to learn more about this process, check out my video about it in Steps of Baking playlist. Now it's been 30 minutes, let's check on the dough. Just look at that, it's totally transformed. It's so stretchy and glutinous. But we're not finished yet. Now we must knead this dough. And because it's so stretchy and sticky, the slap and fold method will be the best thing for it. Now to make it easier to start, wet your hands and wet your scraper. Release the dough from the table, then pick it up by the side, stretch it against the table towards yourself and fold it over forwards. So once again, pick it up by the side, stretch it towards yourself and fold it over forwards. And always pick it up by the side. We want to turn it 90 degrees. After a couple of minutes of kneading, it will get very sticky. But as you keep going, it will become more cohesive and less sticky. Just scrape it up once in a while and continue. The kneading time will be around 12 minutes. And don't get me wrong, the dough will still be sticky after kneading, but you will see that it's much smoother. When you pick it up and pull it, it resists. It will not stretch out and tear as easily. When handling sticky dough like this, you always want to wet your hands with water. It just makes life so much easier. Now we can pop this in a bowl, cover it up and start cooling it down. Now to build a little bit of tension and to equalize the temperature in the dough and cool it down sooner, we will perform a couple of folds at 30-minute intervals. So chill your dough down for 30 minutes and then bring it out again. Wet your hands with water just as earlier, release the dough from the bowl, then pick it up, let it hang down and then roll it underneath itself. Another way to do it is by picking it up and then folding the sides down and up into the middle. You can find out more about folding in the Steps of Baking playlist. Once you have folded your dough into a nice tight ball, put it back into the bowl, cover it up and pop it back into the fridge for another 30 minutes of chilling. After the second cooling stage, we'll give it one more final fold. With these two folds, we have built some good tension into this dough. This will help it keep its shape as it's final proofing and baking. And we have also folded the cold surface into the middle. This means that the dough temperature is the same throughout. That'll give us a more even fermentation. And this would be especially important when making large batches of dough. Now this can go back into the fridge for around 18 to 24 hours. I left mine for 24. It's worth mentioning that my fridge is around 6 degrees Celsius and that is 43 degrees Fahrenheit. So if your fridge is cooler, it may take you longer. But if your dough is nicely puffed up and it's nice and wobbly, it's ready. The beauty of a ciabatta is its simplicity, because you can go from bulk fermentation to final shaping in one step. Now dust your table or a tray to make less mess with a thick coating of flour. Now drop the dough out onto the flour. It is now laying with the smooth side down. It must remain this way. We will flip it just before it goes in the oven. Now dust the bottom side with flour too. And don't worry about using too much, it is quite sticky. Stretch the dough out to a nice square and then using your scraper, cut it into 4 equal pieces. You could just make larger loaves and cut it into 2, or you could cut it into 6 or 8 to make mini ones. Okay, so now we're going to transfer them to our cloth. I use this cloth quite often, and that's why it's already covered with flour. Make sure you dust your cloth really well and rub the flour in. Now place 2 ciabattas in line with each other and don't put them too close, otherwise they'll stick together. Then create a crease in the cloth to separate them and place the next 2 next to the first 2. That thick dusting of flour will prevent them from sticking to the cloth, and it will give your ciabatta that characteristic surface with those beautiful lines that you always see on the loaves. Now if your cloth is large enough, you could just cover the loaves with the cloth itself. I'm using plastic wrap to show you how they rise. The final proof will take around 2 hours depending on the temperature of your kitchen. If it's warmer, it'll take less time. If it's cooler, it'll take longer. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat your oven, 250 degrees Celsius, fan off. And that's 480 Fahrenheit. Also, preheat your baking vessel and your steaming tray. And just look at these beauties. They have puffed up beautifully. Now dust their bottoms with flour again. Otherwise, they will not slide off with the peel. And yeah, that piece of paper that I'm using, it is the peel that I'm referring to. As it turned out, one of them was not long enough, so I just extended it by using another one. Now here's the fun part. Watch closely. Place the peel next to the loaves. Now with your other hand, grab the cloth and lift it up and throw the loaves onto the peel. And if you dusted your cloth well enough, they will not stick. Now they are facing the correct direction. Slide them off onto the piece of parchment paper and they are ready to be loaded in the oven. And again, this is exactly the same process for making baguettes. So after you make these, make sure you check out my baguette video. Now at this stage, you want to have a kettle of boiling water ready to go. Slide the ciabattas in the oven, turn the temperature down to 230. Now very carefully, and using oven gloves, pour half a cup of boiling water in your preheated pan to create steam. And do not get any on the glass of the oven, because it may shatter. Now shut the oven door and let them bake for 17 minutes. The main reason why I turned the temperature down is that I wanted to bake these at 230 degrees. But if I had preheated my oven to that temperature and then opened it up, poured the water in it, created steam, by that time the temperature would drop even lower. So basically by overheating the oven, we are ensuring that the bread is going to bake at the correct temperature. And this is the kind of bread that needs a high temperature bake. You want it to bake quickly. You want it to be nice and crusty, but still moist inside. And finally, just as baguettes, because of the crust to crumb ratio, these will stale very quickly, so you have to eat them fresh. That's just the nature of breads like these. They are best fresh from the oven. So grab your favorite toppings and enjoy. So what do you think of this recipe? Have you ever tried making cold fermented dough like this? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.